All right, a hearty welcome to the faithful and the heathen as we start a new podcast, Unfolding Wings. My name is John Lucy. I am the main host, and I serve as the pastor of Charlton City UMC. But I'm going to be playing the character of Holy Pastor on this podcast and on my YouTube channel, which you can find on YouTube. And neither this podcast nor the videos necessarily reflect my actual views or the church's views. What's important is that we are going to explore the questions and topics on most young adults' minds in this podcast because, look, we all know that faith and faithfulness, religion, and going to church, whether we're talking Christianity or any other religion, they're different for youth and young adults nowadays than in generations past. For better or for worse, that's the truth. Previous generations tend to either demand that we form carbon copy Christians just like them, or they don't give us the space to ask questions about God or to doubt the theology that we've been taught, or they exhibit a hypocritical faith, declaring one thing and acting another and turning us off to church and faith. So many of us youth and young adults feel that we don't really have any guide to help explore our questions and faith in this world. Many feel that the church in particular is the worst place to explore. And then another issue we run into is that all the podcasts, videos, churches, and pastors out there, they tend to be kind of preachy. They try to act cool and hip like some resurrected Fresh Prince of Bel-Air until they give concrete traditional answers that then don't seem to actually apply. So the truth is, there really aren't any concrete answers. Life is changing, church is changing, faith is changing, and we're leaving the concrete behind for the waves of the sea. What worked for generations past isn't working anymore. Our parents and church leaders can't give us faith or meaning. We need to find it on our own, to unfold our wings and fly with grace. We young people have questions that need to be affirmed and explored, not answered by some holier than thou, righteous soapbox preacher. And if there are any pastors or priests that can speak well to young adults and youth, they don't often appear talking with young adults and youth. And so we're starting this podcast with me playing the Holy Pastor, a comical caricature of holier than thou, self-righteousness, soapbox preacher guy, along with my young adult friends from Charlton City UMC to explore the questions and realities of Christian young adults trying to find their way and unfold their wings. We imagine and we hope that much of what we'll talk about applies to people of other faiths or no faith as well. Because, hey, we plan on having fun and asking meaningful questions. So we hope that you will join us for some good laughs as we publicly voice some of your own thoughts, questions, hopes, and dreams and challenges, especially the ones you might sometimes be too afraid to share in your families or churches. What can faith and faithfulness look like for we young adults? Again, I say we because I, Holy Pastor, am a young adult myself. In other words, I am the model young adult. I'm basically Jesus reincarnated until I turn 34 because, Jesus died when he was 33. So I could be Jesus come back, just waiting for God to speak to me from the heavens. This is my son, the beloved. Just waiting for that to happen. So,
sorry, I just wanted to interrupt you there, Pastor.
Yeah.
Didn't you just turn 34?
Let's see, my birthday. Shoot, you are right. So let me try some other comparison there. I'm basically Mother Teresa in a young adult's body. How about that? Yeah, that's better.
That's better.
I take a lot of psychological tests just to confirm my gender identity, but they all tell me I'm actually more feminine than masculine. So maybe that's better anyway. So, hey, now that you've talked, let me introduce you. We have one friend who's not here with us because he's a jerk and he did not schedule correctly. And so he's missing our very first podcast. Diego, he'll be with us next time. But we are going to be exploring faith with also Miss Kayla. Want to say hello?
Hello, my name is Kayla. I'm here to also be funny and mean to Pastor John. So,
And you have no problem with being mean. I know that. I mean, to me, in a funny way. No, normally, you're very nice. I know that. So let's talk about our childhoods. Your childhood in particular. Wait a second. Is the plural of childhood childhoods or childrenhood? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's just childhood. Let's talk about our childhoods.
Yeah, but see, are you sure childhoods is plural of childhood? I don't know. So
You know what? I don't actually know. Now I'm questioning everything.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's what this podcast is all about, anyway. To question everything. So I'm gonna go with childrenhood, actually. And psychologists say that a person's character and such are basically developed by 3 years old or something like that. So let's talk about childrenhood. I don't know. Do you have anything to share, or should I just ask a question?
Well, I mean, so I can tell about like where I'm coming from when, as we go through this conversation. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in a Hispanic household, and both my parents are actually pastors. So I know what it's like to see the struggle of pastors in churches, especially when they're young and, they're just starting out. And I've also experienced being a pastor's kid. So, PK, so fun, can be a lot to take on. And I think it's definitely shaped me as a person. But yeah, so that's where I'll be coming from. There's a lot to unpack in that as having a childhood in a religious Hispanic household.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of the perfect person to talk to about childrenhood because, I mean, I'm expected to be perfect as a pastor, but I am, so I fulfill those expectations. But as a PK, as a pastor's kid, the church expects you to be perfect, right? And
Yeah, and I'm not the holy pastor, so I fall short of perfection.
yeah, everybody does. It's a real shame. So, and is there something special about being growing up in a Hispanic Christian household that makes it harder to grow up or easier?
I mean, I think growing up, I'm the oldest and I'm the daughter. So growing up, there's already a lot of expectation being the oldest daughter. You're expected to pretty much take care of everything, put the family first. I was helping to take care of my brothers. And I want to kind of preface this by saying, like, I hold no anger towards my parents. I was their first kid. They were so young. I think my parents were 25 when they had me. They're still figuring out life. I'm 28 right now, and I do not have children, nor do I plan to have children anytime soon. So, I mean, there was a lot, and they've changed so much within my own lifetime. But growing up was definitely a lot, and it's something that I now have to work through as an adult because it comes with religious trauma. You grow up thinking I feel like a lot of Hispanic religious households are very conservative, so that's also what I grew up around. And now growing up, the church changes, and I think that you are going to talk about how, or I think you introduced it by saying that the church is always changing. So that is true. And, I think we're all living testament to that people can change, the world is changing, but our God never changes. So I think that's something important to acknowledge.
Yeah, I'm going to throw out some pastor knowledge here. I think it was Saint Aquinas who said that in Latin, the church is always reforming, something like that. Ecclesia reformanda est, something like that. Something like that is the Latin. And I didn't think about this, but I also have a little bit of experience with Hispanic Christian households. My grandmother didn't come to my wedding because we're Methodists, but she's Catholic, and so she thinks that we're not going to heaven, we're going to hell, and she didn't want to participate in that. So she didn't come to my wedding. And I mean, I love my grandmother, and I know she loves me very much, but that's kind of like you had mentioned religious trauma, and sometimes little things like that, they're well-meaning,
Mhm.
but it causes problems in we youngins who don't know what or how to handle what
Yeah,
we're seeing and what we're being told.
I I agree. I think something that like maybe bothered me, it doesn't bother me so much now. It's something that I'm actually currently kind of working through. But like growing up, I mean, like, it was like if I had guy friends over, they couldn't be over after a certain time. A guy shouldn't be calling me at the house after a certain time because I'm a lady, and I go to church and I'm a Christian, and they set different expectations, which I mean, I agree, you shouldn't conform to the world and all that, but like at the same time, we're kids, we're trying to figure our way out through life. I think we should be allowed to be children. There's no malintent, or I don't know if that's the word, but there's no bad intention between me and my guy friend when I'm just growing up, and you keep being told like, oh, guys only want one thing. And I'm like, what is it? Like, I don't know. What is that one thing? I'm taught like boys are bad, and growing up that does something to you because then you're always paranoid or you don't trust men. And I feel like the good intention is there. Your parents are like, they want you to be safe, right? They want to protect you from all the bad stuff in the world. And it's just like there's only so much that they can do, which I think is hard because as a parent, I'm sure that you can speak to this. You want to protect your child from all the bad in the world, but you know that you can't, So I think that it's a good intention being a parent when they're like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, or like, don't even get me started about like sex outside of marriage, that whole conversation on like keeping the marriage bed holy. I feel like we need to focus more on practicing safe sex. So maybe don't shame us so much. Let us figure out. While I do think that it is good to save sex for marriage, I just don't think that it's a healthy way to set that standard in somebody's life. Shaming them out of it. So
Yeah, so let's not go down the path of sex before marriage or sex in marriage or anything like that, because we had planned out our first few episodes for this podcast and decided we're not going to touch the sex thing for a while. So
yeah,
thanks
that's
for
a
bringing it
whole
up.
that's a whole other thing that we don't have to cover. But another thing that really bothers me is that like I was expected to kind of say my mom wasn't home. It was then it like, the gender roles in the house. I'm the next woman in the house. I'm the one that has to prepare dinner, to clean, to help take care of my brothers, to make sure that they get in bed, because my parents are working. So it's like I know that I have my duty to do, but it's also like I'm still a kid though. I shouldn't. And then parents coming home upset because something wasn't done right, and it's like I'm still trying to navigate my way through growing up. I shouldn't have to also raise children, and maybe that's also the hesitancy of me wanting to have kids because I feel like I already raised two of them. So that's,
Two is enough.
yeah.
Yeah, but so I mean, biblically speaking, that it's pretty clear that the woman is supposed to stay home and take care of the household. So the first part of this is, why wasn't your mother staying home in the household? What do you mean that she was working?
I know. I can't believe she would do that. I
Yeah,
can't believe that she would leave her duty as a woman in the
yeah,
house to go and live an independent life and chase her dreams and acknowledge her calling from God. How dare she?
yeah, exactly. How dare she? Yeah,
I mean, but we can talk about that more because that's something I also admire about my mom. She was able to, especially in the beginning. I obviously don't live home now, but like she was able to find some crazy balance um, as being a pastor working and also being a mom. You know, those are both full-time jobs. You're always being sought out by your parishioners, but you're also like, you have kids at home you got to take care of. So I think that's also why I hold women, especially in my family, in such high regard, because I'm like, not only are they all working full time, but they're also raising kids. So
Yeah, and your mother just happens to now be about to take on a big role in the church, which is great. But comparing yourself to the women in your family, you're not doing nearly as much. And and the Old Testament says somewhere that the sins of the parents shall be visited upon the kids, and you're clearly lazy and spoiled because all young adults are, and you're not working and raising kids at the same time like you're a hardworking uh, mother and family member. So tell me, what did your parents do that was so terrible to make you the way that you are?
wow, that's a lot to unpack there, Pastor John. But I think that in a way they've they've blessed me because I know that that is a lot to take on. And I've seen my parents go through what they've gone through. And I mean, you as a pastor yourself, I'm sure that you can attest to being stressed a lot. There's a lot that goes into being a pastor and also being a parent. So I think that that's helped me in a way kind of set boundaries because I know my mom, you know, especially being a PK, people are always going after you. You're like, oh, can you help and volunteer to do this? Can you be in this committee? Can you do this? And you know, like my mom would be like, oh, you know, you should definitely say yes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, mom, no. Like, mom, I see how this tears you apart. I'm like, and this is at a point when I was in high school, I was working and I was also in school. So it was like, I need to make time for myself, which I think is important to make time for yourself. And that's something that I value highly because I don't think my parents gave themselves that.
Yeah, so honesty, I mean boundaries, but honesty with yourself as well to know what you're actually capable of, or what you actually want to be doing
Mhm.
with your time and what's useful to be using your time with or for. uh, I know having kids, um, my second one, when my wife was pregnant. Oh, and by the way, um, my wife told me that anytime I bring her up in this podcast or any other time, I should say that I'm only speaking for myself. Um,
For you, Danielle.
yeah. When she was pregnant, I was freaking out. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to father two kids. And once we had a second kid, I was certain I wasn't going to be able to father two kids. But, we're taught that we're supposed to have kids if we're married. The next step is to have kids. I'm sure you've had people ask you, so when are you going to have kids?
Mhm.
And it kind of comes from Genesis chapter 1, that, hey, you shall multiply and be fruitful and spread over all the earth. That's the whole point of marriage and life. We've kind of been taught that, but that in itself is hard to live up to, even if it's true that that's our purpose in life. Some of us just aren't built for that. And
No.
probably good to be honest with ourselves before we have the kids that we're not able to raise.
I agree. I mean, that's the question that I get it a lot. You know, I've been married almost 3 years now, and the question that people are always asking is, so when are you gonna have kids? And I'm just like, I don't want kids. And I don't want to say that I would never have kids. I don't intend or plan to have children. If I could adopt, that would be great, but I'm definitely not in the financial positions to do that. And I think it's okay to be honest with yourself about that. You know, a lot of women are just like, they feel like they're almost useless because they're not able to raise a child or bear children. And I think that I like the way that I think of it. So one of the reasons I don't want to have kids is because, I mean, not only are we going through a pandemic right now, we have overpopulation in this world. And on top of that, the world is dying. We have climate change and all that stuff. So those are the reasons. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain myself. If I don't want kids, I don't want kids. That should be the end of the conversation. But I mean, if people ask me, that's what I end up telling them, and that's that. I think that when the Bible was written, when Jesus was walking around and all that stuff, we were in a different time and place. That was your purpose, was to bear children, because that was the thing to do at the time. We live in different times now. We all have different things to do, different jobs. There's different needs in the world. So if the holy pastor has any more questions, you can ask me now.
Well, yeah. I mean, are you saying that the words of the Bible are not applicable to all times and places?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is your world shook right now? Oh my God.
It is shook. It is shooken. So, I mean, I get that it was a different time and place, but there are so many stories where women feel bad for not having kids, like Rachel and Hannah and uh, Elizabeth, Zechariah's wife. And that's three just off the top of my head. I wasn't even prepared for this. So, I mean, the Bible is pretty clear. It's not like one time it says women should bear kids. It's over and over again. So isn't that God talking to us eternally and universally?
As the holy pastor, what is your honest, actually no. Let me rephrase that question. Not as the holy pastor.
Not
For like a minute. Let's have my pastor John answer the question.
All right. If I can imagine what that really awesome pastor over at Charlton City UMC named John, what he would say, if I can imagine it, he would probably say that all of those passages go back to, as the holy pastor said, Genesis 1, being fruitful and multiplying and spreading across the earth. But the reason God said that was contextually included in caring for the earth, that we could only care for the earth in God's creation if there were enough of us to do so. But as you said, there seem to be enough of us, more than enough of us, to care for the earth. Too many, perhaps, because we're now destroying the earth. And so maybe having kids is not important, because the whole idea is that we care rather than destroy the earth.
That's that's exactly what I was gonna say. So I'm glad that you were able to tap into my local pastor. And
exactly what you're gonna say.
Yeah, that's word for word almost. It's like this thing was scripted.
Cool. So, I mean, let's we've talked a little bit about why we are hesitant to have kids, or in my case, to have more. And for the world, let me say, I'm not just hesitant to have more kids, but I'm definitely not having more kids. It has been decided. And I have to say, best decision I've made in my life so far. But I mentioned earlier about the sins of the parents visiting the kids. I mean, that is an idea that you find in the Old Testament. But a related idea that has to do with growing up is original sin. You know what original sin is?
The Adam and Eve and the fruit.
Yeah. So that's probably all anybody else out there would be able to say about it as well. Something to do with Adam and Eve. Yeah, the idea is that because Eve, she was a woman, notice, because Eve ate the fruit that she wasn't supposed to eat in the Garden of Eden, everybody else alive is sinful because of that original sin. We're all born sinners because of that. And first of all, we can talk about that theologically, what that means. But also, I mean, it kind of relates to how so many young adults are telling me that they need therapy to go over the things that they had experienced in childhood. I mean, is that true? Do we need therapy because our childrenhoods were so bad? I just did children and with the
You did
plural
it.
with the
I
S.
know.
Childrenhoods. uh, were they so bad? Or do we indeed? I was about to say give birth. Do we indeed get born as sinners? And what do we think about that?
Wow, are we born as sinners? That's actually such a deep question that I don't think my brain can like really comprehend that. But the afterward part, because I feel hesitant to answer that question, are we born as sinners? Um, but as you get older, I'm seeking therapy right now again. I've been to therapy a few times, and I do think it's because of things that have happened, but also because of the way that I was raised. There's a lot that you have to unpack, and I think that we don't really have the chance to do it till after we've left home and are able to truly process and give ourselves that space to process what we've been through. I mean, do you think we're born as sinners?
I mean, yeah, because I mean, obviously, right? God says life is going to be terrible after Eden because of what Eve and Adam did. So, yeah, obviously, we're born as sinners. Makes obvious sense.
That's it does. And you know what? I feel really bad for my girl Eve because every time I get my period, she's the first person I blame. I'm like, this is her fault. If she didn't eat that dang fruit, maybe I wouldn't be here right now. But as they love to say here in New England, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what our policy should be on cursing podcast. Uh, so that's something to talk about later. Um, did you just say you'd rather not even be here, or do you mean like be here and having a period?
Be here and having a period.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm glad that I'm alive, although some days it's a real struggle. And I'm like 6 feet under looks pretty good right now. But you know, just like the pain and suffering that women have to go through. And I can speak to this because I'm a woman. So the holy pastor is gonna have to like zip it for like 1 minute. But being a woman is freaking hard. I absolutely some days I'm just like, dang, I really had to, you know, I have boobs. I hate them. I hate back pain. Okay. And then the period stuff is just terrible. Like, can you imagine you're just like in school one day, you look down, there's blood on your pants. Just imagine how horrified you'd be if you're in school, say the guy that you like is walking down the hallway and you're like, oh my gosh, there's blood on I have my period. I didn't even know. So now you have to like run down the hallway to the bathroom, call your mother because thank God cell phones exist and be like, Mom, come get me right now before I die. Like I literally rather be dead than experience this right now. So, and then like on top of that, childbirth. That is just crazy. I admire women that put themselves through that and then at the end say, let's do it again. That's just metal as heck. So, and
yeah.
then men, I mean, what you have to pee in the morning, maybe, and then that's it. You call it a day.
I have to get up about twice every night to pee. So yeah, life is hard. It's hard. It's funny. I actually can imagine uh, having blood on my pants randomly in school because that happened to me once.
That's
My nose just started bleeding for no good reason, and it was all over my pants. And I thought I was peeing blood, but so I couldn't feel it coming out of my nose. Yeah, so that was fun. Uh, I think though that just led me to believing that I'm like Jesus Christ. It was like, oh my gosh, stigmata is happening.
Jesus didn't have two little boys though, with a wife named Danielle, did he?
Well, I mean, it depends on who you ask.
That's
Yeah,
true. We don't have to get into conspiracy on this one.
true. Maybe later. Uh, Especially because I love that show Preacher. Have you seen that show?
No, I was thinking Da Vinci Code, but we can go with
Oh,
Preacher. No idea what that's about.
uh, just Google for everyone, for you, but also for everyone listening to this. Google TV show Preacher. Look at the guy. He is almost as good looking as I am. Uh, it'll be worth it.
Are you gonna put your face on this podcast? Like, are people gonna see you? Everybody, just so you know, he has green hair right now. So just imagine. Wait, no, Hulk doesn't have green hair. Who has green hair that's famous?
Oh, that's true. Hulk has like purple hair, doesn't he?
No,
Or
he's green
does he
with
have his
purple pants.
normal brown hair?
Black hair. Yeah,
Oh,
black
black.
hair, green skin, purple pants.
Does the Green Lantern have green hair?
No. Who has green hair?
Good question.
Anyway, right now it's the Holy Pastor, so
That's
let
true.
your imaginations run wild, I guess.
Yeah, so now in the future, anytime someone has green hair and they'll say, "Hey, you have green hair like the Holy Pastor," I will be, I will be forever the model. I already am, I guess. Um, so I don't even remember what we were talking about. Something
Because you got
childbirth.
caught up on your looks. It's fine.
Oh,
Yeah. Childbirth, yes.
well, let's skip that because I have bad memories from watching my wife give birth, and it's gross. It's just if you ever have the chance to give birth in, in water, I hear that it's more comfortable, but it's also more gross because
Mhm.
you
I can,
go number two while
yeah,
you're giving birth.
I know. I watched my best friend give birth, and I'm grateful for that one-time experience. And
You chose to do this?
she's my best friend, man. She asked me to be there. I couldn't say no. She was gonna ask me to be the godmother, and I was like, all right, I'll just watch her give birth. And I was like, didn't know that happened. Didn't
Yeah,
know any of that came out of there.
I
So
didn't either. And we had gone to 6 weeks of birthing class, never talked about it happening.
I feel like it needs to be talked about because that really brings you guys closer together, doesn't it?
It,
I mean,
I,
how much closer can you get than seeing poop come out of somebody? Let's not go there. Let's not.
yeah, yeah, we could include that in our sex episode, maybe, maybe. But um, but this podcast, it's all about putting out there what isn't often put out there because nobody talks about these things, and then we're left in the dark as young adults, and then everyone gets mad at us for not being what they want us to be. So um, I think we're making that evident. Um, you've already kind of talked about how your parents, even though there were some difficult things, that you admire them. What's your favorite story from your childrenhood?
This has actually nothing to do with like religion or anything, but it's my favorite story about my parents because I ruined the moment. And I really love that about myself because it's very on brand for me. It was my mother's birthday, and my parents have been together now for like 30 years, I think. And I was in high school, and I remember we lived in this house where it had like kind of like a balcony inside. And my dad was downstairs at the bottom. I think it was like a Saturday morning. I was sleeping as you do, you sleep in on the weekends because that's all I look forward to as a teenager. And I just remember my dad singing and playing the guitar really loud. And it was very sweet. And I just remember getting out of bed and being like, Dad, can you shut the heck up? Which he didn't stop. And then I realized it when my mom came out of her room that he was serenading her for her birthday. So that's That's my favorite story about my parents. And like like I said, they've been together a while. Every couple goes through hard moments, but I think what I admire about them the most was seeing the way that they love each other and support each other, especially when it comes to career. Now that you mentioned that my mom is now going to be she's going to be a district superintendent from being a pastor. And every time that this usually happened to my dad, right? So every time it was my dad that was getting promoted or whatever you want to call it, my mom was like, I will follow you wherever you go. No matter what it was, she was like, if we go to New England, then let's go. We're going to go together. And when the time came and the bishop called up my mom and offered her, this opportunity and to pray about it and such, it was my dad this time saying, I'll follow you, wherever you go, I'll go. So that's something that I've always admired about my parents is healthy love that they've always showed me. So
that's a cool story. I can't decide whether I should quote the book of Ruth, although you basically already did, or if I should sing that song. How does it go? I will follow you. You know that one?
yeah, but I think you need to stick with the book of Ruth.
The book of Ruth. Yeah. So what does she say? She says, I'll go wherever you go. Your gods will be my gods. Your family will be mine, or whatever.
Your people, my people, or something like that. Yeah. But she says that to her mother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ruth says it to Naomi. Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite story is of my first communion. I grew up in the Episcopal Church, which, don't hold it against me. It wasn't my choice. Methodists, only way to go. But until I was 7, I was in the Episcopal Church, and you have your first communion at age 7. And I mean, the wine, they give you wine at age 7. I don't know who decided to do that, but it tastes terrible. And so all I did was, I was walking back to my seat, I stuck out my tongue because it's just awful. And I had decided right then and there, I'm not having communion ever again. I'm not having Jesus's blood. It tastes the worst. So maybe that's why I became a Methodist. It's for the grape juice.
For the grape juice, the Welch's, especially when you guys bring in that Welch's grape juice.
Oh yeah. It's only Welch's. Like in the Methodist church, if you don't have Welch's grape juice, I'm not sure it counts.
Yeah. Is that really the divine blood of Christ?
Yeah. I mean, it was like 160 years ago, we decided Welch's is the divine blood of Christ. Only that. Yeah. Maybe that's why it tastes so good.
For sure. Hands down, would pick Welch's over red wine any day.
Yeah. And Jesus was kind of like a rascally kid too. And we should point out that he had a childrenhood, just like we did. He basically got lost in the grocery store, as we all do. I got lost in a clothing store once. Have you ever gotten lost in a public place?
I'll let you tell your story. I'll tell my story.
All right. Well, this is some of my trauma. I was playing hide and go seek. You know those things in clothing stores with jackets and they're circly?
Yes, I used to hide in those too.
Yeah, perfect hiding spot.
Was the best.
I never told my mother we were playing hide and go seek though. And so I was there for about an hour, and they had to end up calling the police to come find me in the store because apparently the employees couldn't be bothered. So they they called the police. Now I have abandonment issues, but that was my fault, I guess. But Jesus essentially got lost like that too in the temple. I mean, so he was a kid, just like the rest of us. And maybe what we should learn from this is just let our kids be kids and not get too upset if they don't grow up with the faith or the habits or the dreams that we want them to have. Just let them be kids for a while. I don't know.
I agree with you. I mean, like, it's not like that. It's not that I had a bad childhood. I just wish I could have maybe enjoyed it more. I mean, because then once you get older, you only keep getting older. It's not like you can turn back the clocks and be like, yeah, let's go play outside and ride our bikes and play street hockey. You know, it's just like doesn't work that way. Everybody gets older, we get jobs, busy schedules, we can't always meet up, you know, right after school when we get out and play games. And I do miss that. I do think we should just let kids be kids, you know. They only get to do it once.
Yeah. Unless they become a clown or something, that's their career choice. Be a
Clowns are
kid.
probably just really sad people trying to bring joy that they just don't have.
Um, well, I forgot to check the clock when we when we got started, so I have no idea how long we've been doing this. Um, but it's probably long enough. Um, but let's end with this. What advice, and I can't believe I'm even asking this of you because
Mhm.
um, you know, you're not old enough to have become an elder, and we only respect elders' wisdom. But just imagine you're an elder for a second. What advice would you give on raising kids to be good and faithful young adults in this day and age?
Um, I definitely think that my advice would be to let your children actually process their emotions in a healthy way. You know, don't scold them for freaking out all the time. They're a kid. They don't know better. I think it's good to provide a healthy, safe space for them to let them actually work through their emotions. So that would be my advice.
Right. So let them process emotions. But if they ask a question that's a really stupid question, you let them know, right? Like,
For
you,
sure. I mean, just
yeah,
like lock them in a room and let them Google it.
exactly. And if they ever say to you, hey, maybe it's okay not to have kids when you're married, then you say, nope, God gave us one answer forever. You make it plain to them, right?
Yeah, keep healthy communication.
Yeah, healthy communication.
Mhm.
Um, well, maybe if I take off the holy pastor hat for a second, maybe healthiest communication is to also let them process different ideas. Um, Kids are wiser than we think. They're capable of processing more than we think, including emotions
Mhm.
uh, and questions as well. All right, so what have we learned today? Anything?
Uh, that was a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I feel like I've taken a lot from this, and I still need therapy. So
Hey, well, hopefully this podcast can be a form of therapy for you and for other young adults out there, and maybe even parents of young adults out there to process everything that's happening and to be able to say, hey, those are the same questions and issues that I have. Hopefully this podcast won't be a big waste of time. Uh, but hey, we'll have fun doing it, even if it is. And that's part of life, is enjoying life. We just said we wanted to enjoy our childhood a little bit more. Um, Maybe this is our compensation.
I'll
Uh,
take it.
all right. All right, listeners, make sure you subscribe. If I get this right, this should be available on what is it called? Spotify and Apple Podcasts, at least those two places. So subscribe to our channel. Join us for the next episodes. Tell your friends, because we're going to explore all sorts of fun subjects
Mhm.
relevant to young adulthood. You can even send us questions or topics that you want us to address in fun and meaningful ways in the future. But for now, as I say in my Holy Pastor Doing Stuff videos, until next time, keep it holy, friends. Are you going to keep it holy?
I'm gonna keep it holy.
All right. I like how you laughed before you said that. All right. We'll do our best to keep it holy.
Take